we as individuals, we get to choose how we respond to the topics of conversations, the questions, the commentaries, the unsolicited advice, all of those things. We can set boundaries. Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. Today's going to be a solo episode with sort of a different format. You've seen me do this a few times here and there, but what I really wanted to talk about today was some of my experiences and what I've been seeing out there on social media. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and believe it or not, I know I can't, it's already Thanksgiving this week. So we're all going to be eating turkey, stuffing, family, friends, and as you know, with these events, there can be a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety, especially considering we are in this moment that we're in right now with a lot of controversy going on, a lot of divide going on in the country and in the world. So I know that I'm not alone saying that anxiety creeps up around this time of year. You also have the time change, which, seasonal affective disorder. It's dark all the time in the morning. It's dark all the time at night. You get very little sunlight during the day, especially if you're working. But as we get ready to go into Thanksgiving and the holiday season, we're going to tackle some of those hurdles head on today because I want to talk about boundaries. And why boundaries? Well, if you've followed me for any given amount of time, or you've listened to this podcast, or you follow me on social media, I often talk about boundaries and how they've really helped me become more peaceful and find peace in my life. They've eliminated people or situations that aren't serving me. In some cases, it's saved relationships that I had with people because the way that they were going wasn't going to make that relationship sustainable. So what I wanted to do today is talk through some of these concepts, how boundaries work, some of the things that have worked for me, and maybe they will resonate with you as we head on into what can be often uncomfortable or even invasive conversations with friends and family over the holidays the next couple of weeks. So given the state of the world, I would say boundaries probably matter more than ever. The last year, but really the last almost decade at this point, seems to really be a whirlwind, and people are obviously reeling from world events that just seem to escalate higher and higher. And then we just had this crazy election cycle, and it seems like everyone has been at each other's throats, even the people we love. You see people ending relationships over politics, over disagreements. And it kind of really got me thinking, especially over the last few weeks as I've had guests on this show or I've been guests on other shows, how important it is to set these boundaries so that we can, maintain and preserve relationships with people that are close to us. And yes, boundaries are for you, but they're also a way to protect your relationships with others. And what I mean by that is when someone is triggering you or they make uncomfortable or inappropriate statements or comments. If you have children, it's other people commenting on how you're raising your children or how they're behaving or something like that. Or it could be about dating, marriage. If you're single, as a male or female, it could be questions about dating and why you haven't settled down. Or if you're going through something in a relationship, people can get very nosy there. But those statements and those comments can often, I know they leave me anyway, very frustrated, disrespected, and they can really lead to like building these feelings of resentment. And what that does is that damages that relationship, not just in that moment when you're having this uncomfortable conversation or getting this unsolicited commentary on what's happening in your life, but it actually slowly can build the type of resentment that makes that relationship unhealthy or even toxic in some cases. And so if we can, and I know this has helped me a lot, like when I'm able to sort of set and enforce a boundary, I'm actually able to maintain the health of some of these relationships, whether that's with friends or with family, because it's okay to um it's okay to like love someone but know that the way the relationship is in this moment doesn't work for you, and you have to sort of step back and be able to say what would make this relationship work for me. One example I have is I have, and this is actually several friends. I'm a very empathetic person. I listen. I will lend a listening ear. I always try to help people, which you've heard me talk about. I've got to get better at not trying to solve people's problems and just listening to them. But I do work hard at that. But there are some people that, and if you're empathetic or, you're an empath, you probably have people in your life that kind of take and take and take and take, and it leaves you feeling more and more drained. And then you start to not want to converse with them as much or whatever that might be, because maybe they're just going to complain the whole time, or they're going to complain about their job or their relationship and just constantly be bombarding you to the point where it's draining and you're not getting anything to fill your cup out of it. And so what I've had to do with some of those relationships in my time, just some of them didn't work. Some of them are no longer in my life, but some of them I was able to sort of manage a balance where I could say, I can set certain amount of time maybe to speak with them, and it's not as often as it used to be. Or, I don't give myself that urgency to respond if they text or call, and it's not from a place of, um, you know, not enjoying their company or caring or being able to, but sometimes it's just too much. And I think I got a hair in my mouth. I think I've been able to keep some of those relationships just by putting those boundaries around when and how I engage with them. So, another thing, I mean, this political cycle has been totally nuts. You've probably heard me talk about it on this show, just last week's episode with Kit Cabello. I've talked about it on several other shows. I just want to tell people it is totally okay to disagree with people on their political views. It's okay to disagree with how someone voted. It's okay to love someone or care about someone and disagree about anything. But I have been just truly shocked. And in some cases, like, it's kind of unbelievable to me that people are ending friendships that have been, years and years long, relationships with family members, their partners, and anyone really over differing political views. Now, I'm sure there's a use case that makes sense to end a relationship over political views. I'm not saying those don't exist. I'm sure, if you have someone who is oppressive or, bigotry or, racist or sexist or whatever. Like I understand, and maybe the political views are sort of the catalyst to remove that person from your life. And I'm not saying like stay in abusive verbally or obviously physically, but like verbally relationships with people. But I will say that like just because someone voted differently than you, I don't feel we should be ending relationships because people have different opinions. You can easily agree to disagree and be respectful in a way that doesn't label your friend or your partner or anyone in your life really as your enemy. And if you're triggered or you're not interested in having political conversation with people, it's totally okay to say, hey, can we talk about something else? Or, hey, I no longer want to talk about politics or topic B or my relationship status with you. And then just be finished talking about it. And if they can't respect that, then you can take it a little bit further and maybe you cut off communication with them in the meantime. And at the end of the day, like two or however many people can have love for each other or affection for each other on a one-to-one or individual or family basis, but have conflicting political beliefs or really beliefs about anything. We're all nuanced human beings. And if you find yourself engaging in conversations that you don't want to have or make you upset or have you sort of lose the regulation of your own body, remove yourself from the conversation and say you're done and then enforce that. And I would encourage you, though, if you do want to engage in these conversations, like I love having political conversations. That's just, I like to debate. I like to hear other people's ideas. I like to share mine, my assessment of what's going on. I actually, when it comes to politics, I try to look at it objectively. I have my beliefs and I, have my things I vote on. I've talked about them here. It's free speech, it's healthcare. And I don't align on a specific side at all. I'm clearly independent. I vote on issues, not sides. But I do have, because I look at it objectively, I have both engaging and kind of negative conversations with people. But if you decide to engage in those, like I do, I encourage you to listen to others, ask for clarification, try and look at it objectively, and then at the same time you get to ask for that in return in sort of the terms of engagement with this person, right? And or this group. And it's not just the political climate where these conversations are happening. You go on social media and it's constant pressure to have this perfect life, which social media or everywhere online, it's all curated. It's important to remember that, but it's still bombarding us with images of, especially over the holidays, like picture perfect families and blissfully happy couples and these amazing vacations or these perfect looking holiday dinner extravaganzas. And I can assure you, and I want to remind you, I'm sure most of you already know this, but no one's having the perfect Thanksgiving dinner. No one's having the perfect vacation. No one has the perfect relationship, even if it may look so on social media or online. And it's easy to get ourselves caught up in comparing. And I used to do this. This was a huge, huge battle for me with my depression when I would see things on social media of people that were happy in relationships or happy with their families, and it wasn't the same experience that I've had or I was having. And then it would send me into a deeper depression thinking, oh my gosh, I want those things. And, I'm not getting them. And what can I do to have that? And it just sends you into this negative spiral. And when you're comparing yourselves, you're feeling like you're constantly not doing enough or you're not being enough. And that can lead to sort of this like spiral of negativity. And, while you're at your Thanksgiving dinner having these political debates or these invasive questions coming your way about your relationship status or how you're raising your kids or how your divorce is going or whatever that is, you got to remember everyone you see online is having those same conversations at their Thanksgiving dinner and having those same uncomfortable processes with friends and family. It's just human nature. So I encourage everyone that what really helps me is if you do go on social media and you see all these things and it seems to kind of like not represent your experience and kind of, get in your head a little bit about how your holidays are different or not as good. Remember to focus on like your mental health, your wellness, and participating in holiday activities and different conversations that fill your cup instead of draining it. And I think that's very easy for me to say. I'm guilty of saying some things and having a hard time practicing them. And, one of the things that it's not even just it's like everyone now is since my reality TV experience and getting married in front of everyone, my dating life, for example, is like all people want to talk about. Or I swear, every time I go home for the holiday, it's almost an interrogation of sorts with these questions about who I'm dating or what's happening here. Or, it's not even just family. Like I get it online all the time. I get it from people I interview with. And it's like, are you seeing anyone? Are you trying to settle down again? Do you want to get married? Why don't you do this or try that? Or you're such a good catch. You must be doing something wrong. And here's the thing, like, I even 2 years ago, like that would be a very triggering conversation. And I just remember even at Christmas kind of sitting there being very, very frustrated as my own family was discussing my public divorce almost at times like I wasn't there. And then there were other times where like it almost was like it didn't happen. And so it was just a very weird dynamic that I had to kind of build myself back from. And, now I try not to even play that game. Like, and what I realized is like we as individuals, we get to choose how we respond to the topics of conversations, the questions, the commentaries, the unsolicited advice, all of those things. We can set boundaries and avoid the majority of those invasive commentaries and questions and topics, because when you set a boundary, you're communicating your needs, hopefully in a clear and respectful way. And you're actually saying, you're sort of setting the stage to say no about things that will drain your energy. And then you're protecting your own mental and emotional space. And it's really like, I mean, it's not about being rude, which the person you're setting the boundary with often can get defensive or think that you're being selfish or whatever that is. But it's really about like your own self-respect and your own the self-preservation of your mental health, right? Which you are responsible for. And just like you kind of wouldn't let someone like walk into your house and move your furniture around without asking, you got to kind of think of your mental space as the same, right? The same as your physical space, because we have not just a right to protect it, like we have a responsibility to protect it. And to do that, I think it's important to sort of first like think about your triggers. What are the things that tend to set you off? The environments too, like maybe it's an environment that tends to set you off. What are those things? What is uncomfortable for you to talk about? What creates conflict in you? What sort of boils your blood? Or are there just specific topics that are just going to be off limits to you and you're not going to talk about them? And that's that. And then once you kind of like have those figured out, and when it's like family and friends, you kind of know, like, and Jude is going to come in and give you all sorts of opinions about how your relationship should be, or your parents are going to be telling you how to raise your kids, or your uncle is going to be talking about the election and whatever crazy conspiracy theories are out there that they bring to the table. And you just got to kind of like think it through a little bit, and then you can decide what your plan of action is to either completely avoid those topics, or a plan to sort of change the subject when they come up. Or it could be specific people that you try to avoid, one-on-one settings with, or you need to keep like, an arm's length away. And once you know those things, and when you kind of like apply them to your unique situation over these holidays based on the personalities there and the whole family dynamics, then you can start to plan ahead or have like go-to phrases ready where you're like, oh, I really appreciate your concern about my relationship, but I'm not comfortable talking about that with you right now. Or maybe you can take a break from the conversation altogether, remove yourself, and hope the subject changes. I've talked about this before. Like, I'm an avid practitioner of what I call the bathroom breather, which is I will remove myself from a conversation to go to the bathroom, and I take a breather as many times as I need to during holiday events, because and people probably think I have a bladder problem, but whatever. But when I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I need a moment to myself, or I'm overstimulated, which happens a lot of times too, I just excuse myself to the bathroom, take a few deep breaths. Maybe I check my phone, something that's kind of going to like take me out of that moment or that mindset. And I just remind myself that I'm in control here. My environment is not in control of how I react to it. And so that time alone in the bathroom really helps me kind of like quickly reset and recharge, sort of brace myself or prepare myself to go back out into that environment. And I know, like, from a topic perspective, which I kind of said, like, I get overwhelmed about the questions in my dating life, and they can be very triggering or upsetting, or when people want to because it's public, people want to talk to me about my ex or share something that's going on with my ex. Like, I don't want to hear any of that. I don't. I need out of sight, like out of mind. It's really hard to kind of have. Usually when you break up with someone, for example, you can stop following them on social media. You kind of can remove yourself and start to move on. But when you're public, it's a little bit more difficult. And then the other thing that I struggle with is people in my life, my friends or my family that, without ill intention, I don't think they're ill intentioned, but they will oftentimes sort of know stuff about my life that I wouldn't or didn't share with them, but they read online or read on a message board or something to that extent. Or they know things about people that were in my life that are no longer in my life that I don't know, but they feel the need or compelled to share it. So I have I've gotten really good at having simple answers that I'm comfortable sharing. And I will say something like, I don't want to talk about that, but I would be happy to share news when I'm dating someone new. Or I've been dabbling my feet in dating a little bit. Once I meet someone and it becomes serious, I'd be happy to share more. I look forward to you meeting them, whatever that might be. Or I tell a funny story. And for me, the key there is to have sort of like a final statement, which is I'll share more when I want to share more, or whatever that is. I try to like limit follow-up questions or give them opportunities to ask a follow-up questions or continue on the subject. It's not foolproof by any means, but it does help. It's one of those things, like in my professional life, when I make a presentation, at the end, sometimes I won't put questions. I'll put thank you. And that's a definitive, I'm not taking questions on that presentation. So it's like, that's kind of like my mindset there. But I hope that kind of helps and helps you kind of like, what my experience has been, helps you sort of set boundaries. But the hard part is enforcing them, because people don't just accept them most of the time. And they can also tend to take it personally, which I said earlier. And we've all experienced that. But a boundary without enforcement is just a recommendation, meaning it is unlikely and unguaranteed to be followed. So this can be tough, especially when you're in a dynamic with friends and family, or if this is something new to you. But the key is to be consistent and assertive, because if you're not, you're going to give into someone once, and then whoever that is more likely to ignore your boundaries next time. And so I encourage people, don't be afraid to repeat yourself. If someone is consistently disrespecting your boundaries, it is okay to walk away from that situation, maybe try the bathroom breather. And it's important to remember that you're not responsible for other people's feelings or the reactions or their nosiness or anything like that. And if someone gets upset when you set a boundary, it's not your responsibility to regulate their feelings. It's your responsibility to do what you have to do to regulate your own. What else did I want to say? I guess like setting clear limits, clear boundaries, enforcing them, just reasserting these things, say them over and over. You will not only protect your own mental space, your own mental health, but you'll also protect those relationships. Because if you disagree with people, no matter the topic, it can be a difficult conversation, but you always have to sort of be willing to walk away from a conversation or walk away from people. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point if they're not going to respect your clearly stated boundaries and why you are or are not willing to talk to certain people, participate in certain activities, or whatever that might be. So I think that was all the stuff I was thinking, but I want to encourage everyone. Holidays are hard. I have a hard time with them. A lot of people I know have a hard time with them. I think even the happiest people in the world have a hard time with them. So just remember to show yourself and others, but show yourself some grace. I try to look at everyone, even the people that hurt me, frustrate me. And I try to remind myself that they're doing the best they can with the tools that they have. And treating people with kindness first will always be sort of the best decision that you can make. So I guess that's boundaries for the holidays. I hope you I hope this was helpful for you. I'm really appreciative of everyone for supporting me and this show. I'm very grateful and humbled and thankful, we'll say, right, for you guys sticking with me on this specific episode. And I appreciate you all so much for listening. I wish you the very best Thanksgiving. I hope you found this helpful. Take care, and make sure that you protect yourself first and foremost at all costs. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.